Welcome to Calm, Boring, Sleepy History. Tonight we begin a quiet journey into one of the world's most ancient and enduring civilizations. Babylon, a city of sun-baked mud brick winding canals, clay, and bricks laid by hand. A city where kings ruled the world from Ziggurats. You may have heard of Babylon in stories, its legendary floating gardens, its tower that rose up towards heaven, and rulers who claimed to speak for gods. But beneath the grandeur lay a daily beat, slow, repetitive, tough. In this episode, we will wander the world of those who lived not in palaces, but in shadows of alleys. They worked in heat, sweat, bureaucracy, and faced quiet hardships of Mesopotamian life. So settle in, let the lights dim low. Let your mind drift to a far place, distant in time and space, where the Euphrates flows and bricks are shaped by hand. Let us begin with what it was really like to live one day as a common laborer in Babylon. Imagine yourself waking before sunrise in a small clay home with reed mats on the floor. The air is warm, already still dry. Outside, the sky is soft ash gray, not yet pierced by Mesopotamian sunlight. Your name is not in history. You are one of many who make bricks for the city essential but not honored. Without you, walls would fall, ovens would not heat, temples would not rise. But no one praises hands that mold mud. You rise, splash your face with water from a cracked jar step outside. The smell of old fires, damp earth, clings to the narrow alley. Your feet are bare, the ground uneven, sometimes sticky, with yesterday's dust turned to morning paste. No breakfast, maybe a flat barley cake from yesterday. At the city's edge lies your task, the brickyard, a wide-open stretch by the riverbank piled with straw clay, half-done bricks drying in the sun. No tools, but your hands a wooden mold, a curved straw scoop. You start the day kneeling by a trench of thick, silty clay. You scoop, mix, knead it with straw, each handful, heavy, slow. The mix is sticky pulls at your fingers, dries fast in rising heat. You pack it into wooden frames, pat it flat, tip bricks onto the ground. You do this again, dozens, hundreds. As the sun climbs, the light turns white. No shade here, only a heron's cry from the river, flies buzzing. Sweat runs down your back, dries again, leaves white salt trails on skin. You blink often, not from tears, but grit. Sometimes a foreman passes, his voice quiet, firm. He counts bricks, notes mistakes. Your labor rhythm goes on. You do not look up much, no reason to. By midday, your mouth is dry. You get water, lukewarm, slightly bitter, from a shared vessel. If lucky, a bowl of dates, lentils. If not, you work on the sun does not wait. In the afternoon, wind stirs. It does not cool, just throws dust in your eyes. You blink, more fingers grow raw clay cakes under nails. You keep shaping, patting, laying bricks in rows. These bricks must bake under open sky for days, hardening under the same sun that beats your back. Yet there is a rhythm in it, a dull repeat that grows familiar. Same gestures, same sounds, same unchanging horizon. At evening, light softens, limbs soar back tight. You wash in the river briefly, no soap, then walk home slow through streets glowing gold with sunset. You pass the temple, incense drifts down. Past merchants, packing stalls, children tossing pebbles in dust. You are one of many, nameless, tired. Your home is dark, a reed lamp flickers. You lie on the mat again as the city cools, your eyes close. You will wake tomorrow, the clay will wait in ancient Babylon. That was enough. Now let us shift our attention from the laborers beneath the sun to the ruler who sought to bind all of Babylon beneath a single idea order. Imagine a palace quiet in the morning haze. Inside, a man sits beside a stone tablet. His face is calm but focused. His name is Hammurabi, a name etched forever into the clay of history. Hammurabi ruled Babylon nearly 4,000 years ago, around 1792 BCE. At the time, Babylon was not yet the mighty empire we often imagine. It was a city-state, one of many scattered across the Mesopotamian plains, all vying for influence, grain, and gods. Hammurabi's reign did not begin in conquest. His early rule was cautious, patient, diplomatic, but over the years, piece by piece, he unified the neighboring lands. Not with chaos, but with meticulousness. His kingdom grew not in sudden flames, but in careful steps. He formed alliances, waited for opportunities, and struck when the moment was right. By the end of his life, Babylon stretched across much of Mesopotamia, but Hammurabi is remembered not just for expansion, but for codification. He did not invent laws, of course. Every society had customs, punishments, and procedures. But Hammurabi made them visible. He gathered laws, some practical, some moral, some divine, and carved them into towering black basalt for all to see. The Code of Hammurabi is often cited as one of the earliest known legal codes in history. It stands over 7 feet tall, with more than 280 specific entries written in wedge-shaped cuneiform script. And at the top, an image Hammurabi standing before the god, Shamash, the god of justice, a quiet reminder that the law came from both king and heaven. If you lived in Babylon, then you might see this stone. Perhaps not read it, most could not, but its presence was meant to remind. The rules existed whether you understood them or not, and they were strict, an eye for an eye. That phrase captures the tone. The code outlined detailed scenarios. What should happen if a man borrowed an ox and it died? If a builder constructed a house that collapsed? If a wife spoke too freely? If a surgeon's scalpel slipped, the punishments could be harsh. Yet the law also tried to protect, particularly for widows, orphans, and the poor. There were rules for wages, for irrigation rights, for merchants, for debts. Justice, as Hammurabi saw it, was about clarity. If everyone knew their place, perhaps there would be peace. But laws alone do not ensure peace. They must be enforced. Imagine the scribes in the palace scratching new cases onto clay. The judges in city gates resolving disputes between neighbors. The priests interpreting omens before court decisions. Babylonian society was tightly woven. Everyone had a place, and above them all stood the king. Hammurabi's rule lasted over 40 years. He died not in battle, but in bed, his empire orderly, his laws in place. But like all empires, it shifted after him. His sons could not maintain his legacy forever, and Babylon would rise and fall again many times. Still, that stone pillar survived, buried, forgotten, then rediscovered thousands of years later in modern day Iran. It had been taken in conquest by later kings, tucked into a corner of a distant city. Now it rests in the Louvre Museum, quiet once more. And if you stood before it today, you might not feel fear or awe, but something else entirely. The sense that people long ago were asking the same questions we ask now. What is fair? What is right? What is the cost of justice? 4. Let us continue now, not along the dusty streets or palace halls, but upward toward the sky. In the heart of ancient Babylon once stood a structure so tall, so imposing, that it became legend. To later generations it was the Tower of Babel. To those who lived there it was known simply as the Itenananki, the temple of the foundation of heaven and earth. A ziggurat, not a temple in the way we imagine domes or steeples, but a massive stepped pyramid rising in tier after tier above the city, coated in gleaming brick, perhaps painted in blue or white. Wide staircases, monumental gates, and flat platforms led ever upward toward the heavens. Today only the faintest ruins remain, but in its time it would have dominated the skyline, a visible link between the earth below and the divine above. What did it feel like to stand at its base? The hum of priests murmuring prayers, the scent of burnt offerings, the steady echo of sandals on baked stone, pilgrims arriving with goods messengers, climbing scrolls tucked beneath their robes. We do not know if ordinary citizens were allowed to ascend the Ziggurat. Most likely only priests and scribes could climb the full height. The structure was not just spiritual, it was administrative. Temples were the center of life in ancient Mesopotamia. They stored grain, recorded debts, held contracts, and served as homes for the gods they honored. At the top there may have been a small shrine. Some say it housed the god Marduk, patron of Babylon. Others believe it was simply symbolic, a gesture toward divinity, not a literal residence. What we do know is that it inspired stories. Much later, Hebrew scribes would write of the Tower of Babel, a human attempt to reach the heavens, punished by the confusion of language. Scholars believe they were recalling the memory of this ziggurat, its size, its ambition, its silent ascent, but archaeologists still debate how tall was it really. Some say over 90 meters, others think far less. Did it have 7 levels as some clay tablets suggest, or more? What materials were used to hold it firm through rain and heat? What rituals occurred at its summit? Excavations in the 19th and 20th centuries uncovered its foundations near modern-day Hilla, Iraq. The site is weathered, scarred by time and war. Only traces remain: crumbling walls, half-buried bricks, fragments of inscriptions. Yet from these fragments we piece together a picture. The ziggurat was not just architecture, it was cosmology in stone, a way to organize the world, to place the divine above the rulers in the middle and the workers below. Its very presence shaped how Babylonians viewed life: vertical, hierarchical, layered, ascending from the muddy streets to the stars. And today, even in ruin, it stirs something quiet in us, a sense of scale of mystery, the idea that people so long ago aimed so high with hands full of mud. They built something that reached toward heaven, and then, like all things, watched it fade. We now return to the city of Babylon, but this time we leave behind the brickyard, the canals, and the dusty courtyards. We step instead into a different world, a world of hushed corridors, painted walls, and heavy perfumes. The world of temple elites, priests, scribes, and patrons whose lives flowed not with hardship, but with ceremony. Imagine yourself walking into the inner courtyard of a major temple, perhaps the great Esagila, dedicated to the god Marduk. Here the walls are high, shaded by linen canopies. Incense burns in bronze bowls. The air is cool, scented with cedar and myrrh. The sounds are quiet, low voices, the soft clink of vessels, the gentle rhythm of footsteps on polished stone. If you lived here not as a worker but as part of the priestly caste, your life would follow a different rhythm. It would be guided not by the sun's arc or the weight of bricks, but by calendars, omens, and rituals. You might rise before dawn to recite hymns, bathe in sacred water, and don robes of finely woven wool, gold. Threads may be stitched into the seams. Your duties could include tending to sacred flames, preparing offerings, or interpreting celestial signs. Everything had meaning: a bird's flight, a dream, a drop of oil on water. Temples were not just places of worship, they were centers of power. They owned land, employed laborers, lent silver, stored food. They were bureaucracies with ledgers, contracts, and rotating personnel. Priests, scribes, and stewards each had their roles. Scribes in particular held great influence. Trained in the intricate cuneiform script, they could read, write, and calculate. They kept temple records, copied hymns, tracked inventory. Their writing tools, a reed stylus and a clay tablet, were symbols of authority. Life here was not physically grueling, but it was far from idle. It demanded precision, memory, and endless repetition. Each ritual followed strict guidelines. Each prayer had a time, a tone, a sequence. Even errors had their own corrective rites. There were also temple musicians, singers, and attendants. Some were women serving goddesses like Ishtar in carefully structured roles. Some lived cloistered within temple compounds. Their daily lives were full of service, purity laws, and devotion. They might grind spices for incense, pone wool for garments, or prepare meals for gods who would never eat them. And yet, in the eyes of Babylonian society, these acts mattered: the health of the city, the rise of the river, the favor of the gods. These were thought to depend on correct offerings and unbroken ritual. The priests carried the burden of balance beyond the temple. Wealthy patrons and nobles also lived lives of comfort. Their homes were larger, cooler in summer, protected by thick mud brick walls. They wore garments dyed with expensive colors, drank beer flavored with honey and dates, and read omens in their private courtyards. They hosted gatherings, quiet ones where poetry was recited and trade discussed. Babylon was a hub of commerce, and its elite had ties as far away as Egypt, and the Indus. Fine lapis lazuli, rare woods, and polished shells lined their shelves. And yet even here, beneath the luxury, there was structure, rules, expectations, roles to fulfill, appearances to maintain. Power was not just wealth, it was lineage, ritual, and responsibility. As night fell over the city, the elite would retire not to silence, but to soft music-cooled rooms, and perhaps a priest reading omens by the glow of a sacred flame. In Babylon, even the highest lived within layers of tradition, and all were watched by each other, by scribes, and always by the gods. And now, as we leave behind the stone-paved courtyards, the slow-burning lamps, the stepped towers rising toward the stars, we return quietly to our own time. Babylon, so often imagined as mythical, distant, half-remembered, was in truth a living, breathing place. A city of laborers and rulers, of clay and fire, of silence and ceremony. Its people rose with the sun, toiled beneath it, and rested in its fading light, just as we do now. Their lives were marked by repetition, by rhythms that passed from generation to generation, the shape of a brick, the chant of a prayer, the ink on a tablet. These were not great battles or dazzling discoveries. They were small, steady moments, which together became a civilization. You've walked today through the life of the forgotten and the powerful. You've felt the grit of clay, the weight of law, the mystery of sacred towers, and the quiet power of ritual. And though Babylon has long since fallen, its temples buried, its walls eroded, its rivers shifted, something of it still lingers in the language of justice, in the architecture of cities, and in the deep, quiet knowledge that even the grandest empires are built on the backs of ordinary hands. So let your mind now soften as the sounds of Babylon fade into silence. Let the dust settle, let the lamps go out, and let the stillness of the ancient world carry you gently into sleep. Good night. This has been calm, boring, sleepy history. Until next time.